Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. Today, I'm very excited to have a good friend and a bit of an inspiration podcaster for me today, Stefan. He is, I said, send over your short bio, and he sent over just literally one line, which I think is so perfect and couldn't be said in any other way. Stefan specializes in helping people to get unstuck from their health challenges and limiting beliefs. Now, I nearly cancelled this call because I'm recovering from surgery, as most of you know, this week, but I quite selfishly wanted to get on the call with Stefan because he is a fountain of knowledge, a true inspiration to me and many. Stefan, thanks for taking the time to join us on the show today.
Tom, you are more than welcome. It's actually an honor because just off air, we were talking about this, how you were the very first person that I interviewed on one of my podcasts back in, I don't know, I reckon 5 to 7 years ago. So it's a real pleasure to be giving my time to you and hopefully your listeners and whoever is watching.
Dude, I appreciate that. And you are the inspiration for me starting my podcast and how things have changed, huh? You traveled around the country to get your podcast interviews at the start, and now we just do it on this what's-a-call Zoom thing. So it's different world, huh?
Life is changing, and I'm still in two minds whether it's changing for better or we're stepping away from natural health and what we're designed to do in the first place. But maybe we can explore that in a minute, because
I think so, dude. I suppose my first question for you, let's get the show going, is how did you get into this? How did you get into the health realm? Why were you so passionate to get out there and start sharing your message?
Sure. Well, this is where I have to share my personal story with people, and unapologetically, I'll be somewhat very transparent of what happened. But I'm in my mid-30s now, and often people, when I teach people how to be healthy, both physically and mentally, there's this resistance to relate to me, because they're like, what do you know about being unhealthy? You've got the six-pack, you're healthy by the conventional definition. But it wasn't always like this. So me and you went to College of Chiropractic. We graduated from the same place. You were ahead of me. And that was my first introduction to true health, completely away from this whole concept of treating the symptom and masking problems. And back then I thought I was healthy, graduated, started a busy practice. And one day I ended up in A&E, which was the first real kind of 360 turn for this 25-year-old at the time, fit and healthy male. When you look in the mirror, the six-pack was giving me this false identity. And then the doctors take the scan and they say, we're really sorry, but you have this shadow outside your left lung. And there I'm thinking, I'm 25, I drive a nice car, I've got a beautiful girlfriend, got money in the bank, life is great. And all of a sudden, it was all taken away from me within this decision of the consultant saying, there is a 17% chance of you not making it because we have to do this surgery, speaking of surgeries. And I hope not many people can relate to this, but my health was straight away the priority. And luckily, it was all fine. I had this complicated, what's called a thoracotomy. This is where they kind of cut you from the back, open up. And so I had to literally learn how to breathe again, move, sleep, and went back to basics, what chiropractic taught me, looking at health from a holistic perspective. And now I teach people how to do that themselves. I actually put into a program, I have protocols, I found things that work, I found things that don't work. So I'm not perfect by all means, but that's how I got into the whole concept of we need to teach people how to be healthy for the right reasons in a way that is sustainable.
So true. I just want to interject on you on that one. And your story is incredible. And I've seen it in part. But what's really interesting for me, having had similar health concerns, and I did a podcast with another guy recently who's similar. You seem to have learned very quickly. Yet myself and the other guy fell into self-sabotage the first time that we got that kind of diagnosis. And one of the things we were going to talk about is like, a lot of people can't relate to what we're talking about because I haven't been anywhere near that, but they're coming out of lockdown. Like they've lost their health in other ways. So for someone who's just kind of like flirting with the idea or is going, yeah, but you know what? I am fit and healthy. I've got this look, like you say, this appearance of health. Where can they start, or where can they, how can someone understand if they are truly healthy or not, regardless of looks?
Sure, it's a good question. I actually think that's probably the question we should be asking. And for me, that is, how do you define health? Because there isn't a universal. You can go in the dictionaries, you can look at the World Health Organization, what health means, but health means it's so subjective, right? We don't have, if you have a disc problem with your lower back, the gold standard test to see if you have a disc problem will be an MRI scan. You'll get chucked in this machine, the thing will spin, you get an image, boom, we have a disc problem. With health, we just don't have one gold standard test to measure us being healthy. And if I speak to you versus my mom versus one of my colleagues, we'll probably come up with different definitions. So I just want the listeners and people who are watching this to, first of all, think, literally, when you finish the podcast, sit down and write down, what does it mean for you to be healthy? And when I put a definition on health, and then I link it to, because I work with some private clients on this kind of stuff, and when I link it to their values that they identify for themselves, what's important, then the magic happens. It's not about what you look like in the mirror. It's not about what you feel on the inside. It's not about what you eat. It's a combination of things. It's this thing, like when I was studying marketing and someone told me the worst number in business is 1. It's not, do I do Google or do I do Facebook? It's, I do Google and I do Facebook. It's not about, do I eat well or do I exercise? No, I exercise and I eat well. So first of all, I believe we should start from, how do we define health for ourselves? And for me, health has actually changed. When I was 25, it was all about having the 6-pack, eating a high amount of protein and looking good. Now, healthy is, for me, boils down to probably 3 or 4 different factors. One of them is, I need to feel fulfilled. Because sometimes I can look really good, but I can be unhappy. And I don't think that's healthy. Sometimes you can have an amazing diet, but it can make me feel miserable. And I can feel obsessed, and I can self-sabotage that I had a Snickers bar. And I'm sure people can relate to that, because you see some athletes, some very high-level performers, who are just, are we allowed to swear on this, by the way?
Yeah, you can do what you want.
Who are just freaking miserable. And they know it. Any footballer, any rugby player that you speak to after they have been on top of their game, say how miserable they were after winning the World Cup. There's an amazing interview with Johnny Wilkinson saying, I was stuck in the hotel, like crying, when I won that kick, when I won my nation, like the trophy. He was like, I was miserable, I was lonely. So think about what health means to you, because I don't want to define health for you, Tom, or for anybody else. I can only speak from a subjective experience with using data. Yes, we can measure bloods. Yes, we can measure BMIs. Yes, we can look at other sort of biomarkers, but ultimately it's a holistic way of looking at things.
So it's that why, isn't it? Why, I suppose, is you're a new dad, like, which is awesome. Has that changed your why for health?
100%. Within approximately like 3 seconds, as soon as you hold your little baby, you realize, holy, it's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
It's about me being the best me in order to show up of my best self, to be a dad, to be the best provider that I possibly can, or whatever the value that you have is. I guess I had the unfair advantage that I went through all these challenges, and I knew that from age 26, I'm not going to be in that position ever again, because I realized that, and I'm just trying to find a tweet that I did this morning, and I was literally going to share with your audience, but I wrote this. I said, a person with health has 1 million dreams. A person without has 1 dream. And it was just, at the time, obviously that was the priority. Why didn't I prioritize my health? And I almost did what you did. Once I got my health back and I went to study nutrition and I started to understand the levels of stress that I was going through, I went for a burnout opening my business, my first business. So now I think I have a balance, but it wasn't easy, and I definitely made loads of mistakes getting there.
And I don't think it's it's not a destination, is it? Like, it's this whole sort of homeostasis of the body doesn't exist. Like, we don't exist in this one state of just perfectness all the time. So it is going to ebb and flow throughout life, and for different needs and different needs. Like, when we're young, we want to look good. We may play competitive sport. We need to be fit for that. And as we age, we might adapt and change our diet so that we can have more energy and more longevity, and our mind to be working better. So someone's got their why. They're like, yeah, I want to be healthy for this. Once they've got that, what can they then do to sort of practically put in the steps that they need to do to start to move towards health? And I know everyone's different, but what are some foundational tenets that people might need to progress forwards?
Sure. I love that question, because when I was making a few notes before we started this, I said to myself that sometimes I can be quite philosophical, which inspires people. I get that, motivation and all this, but motivation means nothing unless you have discipline, unless you have practice, and unless you put things into play. So I wanted to be practical today. I made myself a promise to say, I'm going to share with people things they can take from today's podcast that they can apply literally today. Mm-hmm. And this is what I believe is a good model of health. So you've got your why, that's your core. After you have your why, you need to know what you're doing. And that, for me, that breaks down to probably 5 different categories that I can talk to you through in a minute. And that's what I teach people. And then how. So we've got the why, we've got the how, and we've got the what. The why, we've got this saying in chiropractic, when the why is big enough, the how is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But having said that, I feel like a lot of people wish they were healthy and they feel very inspired, but they don't do anything. Or if they do stuff, they do the wrong thing because there is so much conflicting evidence of what actually works. And if you look at, and these are my 3 principles that I stick to. Physiology, you've got to know your physiology. That the physiology part comes under nutrition, under movement, under stress management, sleep optimization, and being socially connected to people. That's proven to be a super, super healthy way to stay alive for a long time and be happy. So that's your physical component of your health. Then you have the chiropractic stuff. That's your neurology. That's your mindset. That's how the central nervous system works. All these automatic functions that take place, which also includes thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So you've got your physical, you've got your mindset, the science of the mindset. And then the 3rd component in my program is all about habit recalibration. Mm. How do we make small changes over a long period of time consistently, so that in 6 months' time, Dr. Tom Waller has a completely different morning routine? Because when I teach the science of habit, and you can look into the power of habits, Atomic Habits, great books that have been written, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here. It's about applying things that are so simple and so easy to apply that it's impossible to fail.
And I think that's the main thing. It's like, you say there's so much conflicting evidence and people don't know what to do, but deep down, everyone knows, like, drink more water, eat fresh food, move your body. Like, people know it, but why don't they do it? So how can people, like you say, it's a small thing, little steps. Like if you go out and you go walking, you take the wrong compass bearing. If you're off by just 1 degree and then walk 10 miles, you're going to be like in a different county. So it's the same thing with health, like you're saying. But what can people do simply? Is it as simple as, well, I'm just going to put 1 carrot on my plate every day, so by the end of the year, that's 365 extra carrots I've had? Is it as simple as that? Or, what is it that people can do to just get that momentum going?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to make your awesome podcast sound very unsexy, but cool. It's super simple. But you know what? We just like the shiny, sexy new things. We like to try biohacking. Mm-hmm. We like to try taking supplements. We like to expose ourselves to cold water. I do all those things. But when I was losing my health and I had this huge surgery and they had to collapse my left lung, the first thing I had to learn is, how do you reduce the inflammation in your body and how do you get good sleep? So sleep for me is actually the foundation of everything that you can build on top of that. Diet is important. Movement and exercise is important. Dealing with your stress is super important. But if you don't get a good sleep, forget about the rest. Sleep, if we want, we can go into the nitty-gritty science of what are some good tips for people to get a good night's sleep. We can do that if you want. I'm not sure how we're doing on time.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just dig into sleep a little bit, and we are going to, because I think that's probably a great thing to get some good info for our audience for. But before we do that, you said at the beginning in the intros, we might get into is the world going the right way or not? Like, it's so true, isn't it? Like, it just comes back down to basics. Like, we had our health when things were simple. We've lost our health when things aren't. So everybody knows that, but sleep is a foundation, and sleep is something that people are definitely poor at. It's something that Sarah and I are really working hard on, and still struggle, still really struggle. I monitor mine, I measure mine, and it's improving. But what are some simple tips you could give people to improve their sleep?
Cool. And by the way, what you just said, the answer isn't in a magic pill. The answer is in doing the basics. And every time you think, well, what are the basics? The basics are, what are we designed to do? We're designed to evolve. Evolution comes from staying away from danger. Like, don't get the bus hit you. Don't smoke. Don't drink. Don't eat processed foods that your great grandma wouldn't recognize as foods. And be consistent with it. But Tom, and I'm sure you've realized that with your clients as well, you cannot change people. You can hold their hand, you can give them feedback. You talked about the compass. You can give them feedback if they're doing well or not well. You can give them the right information. You can give them a little nudge. You cannot change people. Therefore, self-awareness is a massive skill to develop if you're someone who wants to change. You have to be aware that in order for me to change, and this is where I am today, the way I was thinking yesterday and the day before and the day before, the way I was acting got me to where I am. If I'm happy, awesome. This is not the right podcast for you. If you're not happy and something needs to change and you feel like you cannot carry on like that, the level of thinking, the way you see yourself, the way you see your environment, the way you see your reality needs to change. It has to, because otherwise you're not going to get different results. But it's not a magic quick fix. It is a process. And sometimes taking those small steps, putting a carrot on your plate, will lead to the next action, this domino effect of, oh, actually, I've got a carrot and I've got a pizza slice next to it, and I've been eating these carrots and I feel amazing. Well, I'm going to have a little bit less pizza this week. And that will encourage me to maybe go for a longer run. Oh, that will encourage me to drink more water. Oh, you know what? That actually feels amazing. And my sleep is improving. So going back to sleep, in terms of building that foundation, making sure that your body repairs, regenerates, and you learn different motor skills quicker and better, because that's what sleeping is all about, is repair. This is where I would start. I would probably dig deep into how light affects your brain chemistry. We have this circadian rhythm, which is your internal body clock. Everyone's is slightly different. However, even what I'm doing now, Tom, the sun is starting to go down here in the UK, and I have bright lights in front of me. My circadian rhythm is not going to be optimal. But we have to find the balance between obviously what's practical and being able to do this interview versus what my ancestors used to do. So light is super important. You want to dim the lights half an hour to an hour before going to bed. People think that sleep is all about what you do before you go to sleep, but actually the biggest factor in terms of your neurochemistry is what you do the first thing in the morning. As soon as you get up, you want to expose yourself to light. It can be even artificial light. If you're getting up at 6 o'clock in the UK in the morning and the sun is not out, you want to open the curtains bright and wide. Light, oxygen, and water. You want to rehydrate your body. You want to expose yourself to light, and you want to go for a gentle walk or get some fresh air. Even if it's just opening the window and just taking a nice deep breath from through your diaphragm. This will start your day in a completely different way. And sometimes when I rush and I get things wrong as well, you notice it. I'm less focused. I'm a little bit more sleepy when I get to work. I feel a little bit more tired later on in the day. and that affects your next cycle of sleep, which is obviously the following night. So light is a huge influencer on quality of sleep, and so is food. So is food. So what we actually find is if people wait for 1 hour after waking up to have their first meal, their cortisol levels are much better rather than having your breakfast straight away. Does that make sense? So you have 1 hour window of no calories, not necessarily breakfast, just no calories. So what I would do is I'll smash half a liter to a liter of water first thing in the morning, wait for an hour, then have my coffee, and then have my breakfast. And I love my coffee, by the way. I absolutely love my coffee. And I've been experimenting this for the last maybe 6 to 8 months. I used to have it before my water. I've changed that. You want your natural cortisol levels to be up first thing in the morning. You don't want any caffeine to be spiking them up even further, because then that's when you get the 12 to 2 p.m. dip of energy where you feel like you need to go for a nap. That's
definitely the one I'm working on, the coffee, but the rest of the stuff, like simple things like I like to get outside barefoot, hardly clothes first thing in the morning, even if it's dark, just to get that air, that grounding.
How does that make you feel?
Energetic.
Why does it make you feel energetic?
Because it's freaking cold.
Because it's freaking cold, right? We love comfort. That's one of the biggest issues. We've come so far away from challenging our body, our neurology, and also our chemistry to discomfort. We're so away from it. So now we have big heads, big fat bellies, and skinny kind of bodies in the same way, with no muscles. And if you actually look at mortality rates, one of the biggest mortality problems we have is lack of strength. An old person loses their muscle mass, they have a fall, they fracture a bone, they can recover on time, they catch pneumonia, and unfortunately they die. It's not diabetes, it's not cardiovascular problems, it's not lung cancer. It's insane.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the next point is movement. Movement is so important, but you've got to work on sleep first. Other points I'll consider is no caffeine after 2 p.m. That's pretty standard. No big meals before dinner. No big meals before bedtime. The research suggests 2 to 3 hours prior to sleeping, you don't want to have a big meal. And then you can go into the biohacking stuff with wearing goggles and taking magnesium before going to bed and all this stuff.
I think the biohacking stuff has a place, but like we always said, I used to do bodybuilding. We always said like people would jump on the juice too early because they haven't managed to get themselves to as good as they could be without any help. And I think that's what we're doing with our health at the moment. Like people are trying to biohack before they've got the basics sorted.
You can't cheat your way out of health.
Exactly. You can't. And I suppose it is difficult. Like I hear you saying then, people say, well, I can't do that. And there are days when, I can't get a meal in before 9 o'clock at night, and then I'm someone who goes to bed before 10. So it's not, it's not there. But I'll then have a long fast the next day until, probably at least a 12-hour fast the next day before I start eating.
And it boils down to, sorry to jump in, Tom, it boils down to the way you work on your mindset, which again, it was my second point. Physiology first, mindset second. If you're aware that actually one night of a bad meal in comparison to 21 meals I've had that week, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So people have this all or nothing mentality, which is again unhealthy. Going back to how do you define health? You cannot be perfect, and we will love to be perfect, but you've got to forgive yourself with dignity sometimes.
Yeah, never, like I see you got the Christmas tree in the background. It's Christmas time when we're recording this, but never deny yourself that treat, so long as it is a treat. Like you say, that one meal out of 21, it's okay.
It's okay. The 80-20 principle, right? It works with health too.
Yeah, 80-20. December offer. The rest of it is okay. Stefan, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. You are a fountain of knowledge, and I know you've got so much more to give. Where can people find out more about you, or even get in touch with you for some help?
Sure. I think the best way, and the one that I interact with the most, would probably be Instagram. Dr. Stefan Gospodinov. I'll probably have to spell that for people, but Stefan is spelled Stefan, and my surname is Gospodinov. And I think I come up on top. And we're really trying to push it this year because it's a very visual platform that I can interact with with followers and just give free content. Like, it shouldn't be. You said so. You made such an amazing point earlier. You said we all know we should eat better and we should move more. Why don't we do it? There isn't one answer that will fit all. Every person is individual and every person needs different requirements. And that's why I believe, especially after COVID, especially after lockdowns, whether you're a man or a woman, you have had your struggles, and we all have, but it's jumping on the same mentality, the same framework of thinking to support each other. So sometimes, yeah, people need extra help. I do like literally one-to-one consulting where I have to identify people's calendar and put meetings in here and schedule me time and meditation and breathing practice with them. Or sometimes I literally will just make a meal plan for someone who needs to lose weight and reduce the inflammation in their body. So you just have to be flexible and stop the all or nothing mentality, the growth mindset that is becoming quite popular nowadays.
I love that, Stefan. Thanks for those final thoughts. So definitely put a link to your Instagram in the show notes so people can find it easy enough. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I consider you, a mentor and a friend. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Tom, and continue doing what you're doing. You're inspiring a lot of people, and let's see what your podcast has to bring next year for us.
Thanks, man.